Hey, what's up? Hello. Come along with us on our road trip around the North Island. We started off in Auckland and I had my handy dandy driver. We headed off on a 3-hour drive towards the Coromandel. Our first pit stop, Pocohino Beach. We got back in our car and headed off back to Whangamata for a little lunch break. The following day, we started bright and early and headed to Hotwater Beach in hopes for a nice day, but clearly we were wrong. After a few hours soaking up the sun that finally came out, we got back in the car and headed further north to see some more scenic beaches. After spending a few days at a couple different beaches, we finally made it to the main point of the Coromandel, the Cathedral Cove. We were lucky enough to do a sailing trip around Flaxmill Bay, see the amazing and iconic Cathedral Cove, and then got to have a dip and a snorkel. After finally getting off the water with just enough time to spare without being showered upon, we decided to travel inland and stop at a few waterfalls and picturesque places. This one was Omanawa Falls. It was honestly so gorgeous, but we expected to be able to walk down, which was such a bummer. Then we headed further to Wairiri Falls, and having the boyfriend I have, he decided to jump. And who jumps after he jumps? I do. Would I recommend safety-wise? No. But would I recommend thrilling-wise? 110%. We headed back to Tauranga. We ended up hiking up Mount Maunganui and saw these amazing views. After running back to the car, we made it just in time to get the McDonald's breakfast, and oh, was it worth it. We headed further inland and got lost as per usual, but finally made it after a 2-hour walk to Whataroa Falls. We finally gathered our stuff and headed back onto the road, down south through to Rotorua with a few stops along the way, first one being Okere Falls. We watched a few rafters and headed further along the track to the most dangerous part, and who decides to jump? You guessed it, Sam. I kept my eyes closed for this one. In typical Sam and Emily ways, once we saw other people having fun, we wanted to have fun, so we booked ourselves in for the rafting trip, and oh, was it worth it. It was such a cool experience, and I wish I had a GoPro to film inside. After our rafting trip, we headed back inland, off to Rotorua, where we did the Redwoods Tree Walk. With enough walking already done for the day, we decided to continue walking and looked through the stinky town of Rotorua, and then we ended the night off with dinner and parking up at a lakeside campsite. The following morning we headed off bright and early to find some creeks with natural hot water. This one was Kerosene Creek. We headed further north up to Lake Taupo, stopped off along the way at Huka Falls, and finally got some KFC. The following day we headed back up north to Rotorua and headed to the Waimangi Volcanic Valley. We were lucky enough to experience a cruise through the waters where two rivers collided together after the huge volcanic reaction. And then finally we walked all the way back. And this may sound crazy, but we drove all the way back to Taupo, even though we were there in the morning, for a nice sail around the Taupo Maori rock carvings. We took a quick dip and headed back. Such a cool experience. I would totally recommend for anyone that was travelling around the North Island. finally got back in the car and decided to make a long shot of a drive all the way up north, as we knew the terrible weather was on its way. So this day was full of heaps of walks in the rain. But the rain didn't stop us and we continued hiking, having fun. This was the Mangapohu Natural Bridge, and we found a cave along the way, the Peri Peri Caves. We continued on to Bridal Veil Falls. We continued heading north, and unfortunately I do not know the place of these last waterfalls, but we finally trekked all the way up to the very top of the North Island to a campsite right near Cape Reinga. We did an early morning hike all the way down to the very tip of the North Island. On our way back we stopped off at these sand dunes and continued our travels back down to Auckland. We stopped off at a few other waterfalls and the main one that I could never forget are these rainbow falls. Sam being Sam decided to hike behind it, and me being me, I felt jealous and had to do the same. We finally found a camp spot between where we were and Auckland, Matapori Beach. We spent about 2 nights here while we did a few excursions along the way before we made our final stop back in Auckland. Stupidly, on a 28-degree day, we decided to hike Duke's Nose, which was one of the hardest and longest walks of my life, but the views were definitely worth it and we made our mark. We just really wish that the sun had peeped out just a little bit more through the clouds. But after that huge hike, we headed back to the Matapori campsite and decided to take a quick dip in the water to end off our last night on our road trip. Thank you for following along, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye! And hey, guess what? You can like and subscribe!